It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Mandy the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody, it's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey gang.
And Les Webster.
Hello all.
How are you guys doing?
Doing all right.
Not bad at all. And you?
Well, as y'all could probably tell, I'm a little under the weather. Kind of one of the side effects from raking leaves out of the yard, so I apologize to everybody out there. So,
it's kind of mountain cedar season around here.
Yeah. So, what's been going on in your neck of the galaxy?
Hey, galaxies have arms. Why can't they have a neck? I had an acquisition. This was actually about a week ago. It was one that popped through on one of my cheap Kindle books things, which surprised me. It never occurred to me that this book would pop through one of my cheap Kindle book things this quickly. So I picked up Leonard, My 50-Year Friendship with a Remarkable Man by William Shatner. And I'm saying this fully admitting that I haven't even cracked it yet, but I will. I'm going to make a point of reading it soon, and I will report back when I do.
Okay. Cool. Les?
I was out of town late last week and took in one of the football bowl games. So I was kind of away from comic books altogether.
So that was like live and in person. You went to an actual bowl game, not like you watched them on TV, right?
This is a truism, yes. I was in the crowd.
Which one? Where were you? Tell us everything.
We went to the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio and watched my alma mater win big time. So my niece, who I hadn't seen in 5-6 years, and I were pretty excited about the game, both being grads. So had a good time.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny you kind of bring up the book about Leonard. In addition to trying to catch up on some of my back reading, I caught a show on HBO. They were kind enough to replay Carrie Fisher's Wishful Drinking, which I had never seen before. And it was recorded back in June, I believe, of 2010. And for those who don't know, it was a one-woman show that she did from, I think, 2009, 2010. And then she did a book based off that, if I'm not mistaken. And she essentially talks about her life growing up with celebrity parents. And it focused more on Debbie Reynolds. But she talked a lot about her dad, Eddie Fisher, as well. There was just a little bit to Star Wars, which was fine. But growing up, and then the things that have gone on in her adult life, and of course her bipolar and all that. And it was funny. It was such a funny show. If you've not seen it, I highly recommend it. The ending kind of got me because have you seen it? Have either one of y'all seen it?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Yes, I have. Yeah.
You've seen the special? Okay. The ending kind of took me aback a little bit. And then after I saw it and kind of digested, I was like, okay, I could see where they were going with it. But it just seemed, I don't know. What it was she finished the show by singing Happy Days Are Here Again, and then is promptly taken out on a gurney by paramedics. They wheel her through the audience, and she's high-fiving and shaking hands, that stuff, as they're wheeling her out, and then they put her in the ambulance and they drive off. And that just kind of struck me different considering recent events.
Mm.
So I was like, yeah, I mean, that's funny. And I could see her doing that, but just given what has happened recently, there was kind of the melancholy feeling, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of a too soon feeling
Yeah,
of
it's
that
like,
for
oh,
sure.
yeah, I didn't really need to see her. I did not need to see her on a gurney being wheeled into an ambulance.
Not helping.
No, you're not helping the situation.
But if anybody
Uh,
was going to make fun of something like that, it would be her,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, and the whole thing was just it was her making fun of her bipolar and all that. Because I mean, she was talking as you were getting close to the end, and then at one point you hear a siren, and she says, "Oh, my ride's here," and I thought it
Yeah.
was just an accident. I just thought it was just you know, hey, it's just one of those things that kind of happens,
It was like a
and
real
she
siren in the background or something.
right, and she just went with the flow. But no, it was all planned. But it was really good. I laughed a lot. So I highly recommend it. And actually, HBO is moving up There was a documentary that was filmed. Fisher Stevens was one of the co-directors. I don't remember the other person's name. And it's called Bright Stars. And it is a documentary on Carrie and Debbie. And it was
Yeah,
just filmed
I remember hearing about this.
early 2016, I guess. And it was actually being scheduled for a March debut, but they have actually moved it up to January 7th.
So by
Of
the
course,
time this drops, we should be able to catch it on
yeah,
HBO Go or wherever, or actual HBO if you've got it.
yeah. So I definitely want to see it because I saw a little bit of it, and I guess I did not realize that they were neighbors. They lived next door to each other, except for Carrie's was a little bit higher up on a hill, and she talks about that a little bit on Wishful Drinking because she makes the comment that she lives next door, and someone kind of chuckled. She says, "Don't laugh."
When she describes the interaction of the adults in her life, I had tears in my eyes.
Yeah.
The way she was carrying this person was involved with that person who was involved with another person, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
all came back around.
The whole
Uh,
blackboard thing. Yes.
yes.
Oh my God. And what he's talking about is the whole the whole Debbie and Eddie, and then of course you got Elizabeth Taylor, and then I forgot who the husband was at that time. And then she starts going through the diagrams of all the different marriages and stuff, and oh God, it gives you a headache trying to figure it out. And somehow she still kept track of it. And the whole thing is at that time Billy Lord, her daughter, was interested in who was it last? You remember? It was someone tied on Eddie Fisher's side, but it was like through marriages or something like that. So Billy was trying to find out if it was okay if they could have a relationship or not, and you know,
Yeah. It was a son of somebody, and it just kept going around. I know about what you talk about. I don't know who it is, though. I don't recall.
but yeah, that was crazy. She mentions that her maternal grandmother was from El Paso, Texas,
I believe so.
and then Eddie Fisher's family comes from South Philadelphia. So she says basically we're white trash, but we lived in Hollywood, so we were blue collared white trash.
Now, her daughter is on Scream Queens.
Yeah,
And what's funny, one of the funny things about her role is she is the one that wears earmuffs and makes her look like Princess Leia 3/4 of the time. It is really amusing.
Is that
They
intentional?
did. Yes, it was intentional.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that had to be. But it was funny. She talked about when Billy was younger. Billy wanted to be either, I think, either a singer or a comic. And Carrie says, "Okay, if you're going to be a comic, you need to be a writer. But look around you. You have a mother who's bipolar and an addict. You have a father that's gay. You have a grandmother that tap dances. You've got a wealth of material here."
To say the least.
Yeah. But I highly recommend it. It was really fun.
I tell you what, the kind of you talk about the morbidity of it a little bit. What that kind of reminded me of, and
Mm-hmm.
this is a bit of a tangent, but George Carlin's last album was called "It's Bad for You," and it came out like a couple of months before he died, and it was eerie listening to it at that point
Yeah.
because he did a lot of talking about death, and it's like one of those things where like, did he know? Did he?
Yeah.
It was very. There was just so. It was so much, and it was like. I mean, the whole gist of the thing. I mean, he's a lot funnier than this, but the whole gist of the thing was like, I don't. Whatever. I'm whatever. I don't mind dying at this point. It's fine. Whatever. And I mean, it takes it. It's pervasive enough that it makes you wonder if he was like hearing a lot of crap from his doctors at the time or something, because and then just boom, heart attack, dead. I mean, and he was in his
Yeah.
70s, so it's not like it was sudden. And he'd had heart attacks galore before. But the
Yeah.
way that came across, it's almost creepy to listen to it. I mean, especially like that first year after he died, it was, I think I listened to it once and I couldn't do it anymore after that. I probably should go back and listen to that again. It's been almost 10 years now, but
Yeah.
that sort of, that morbid sense of humor, that's kind of where my brain went with that.
Well, you mentioned that I, I haven't listened to the album, but David Bowie's last album. Supposedly, from what a lot of people have said, if you listen to it, it sounds like he knew that the end was coming and that this was his last album. So,
Well, yeah,
yeah,
but
here
see,
you
he
go.
had cancer. I
But
mean,
true,
he did know it was
true.
coming. Carlin died of a heart attack. I mean, he might have not. I mean, he was 71 or something like that when he died. I don't remember exact number, but I mean, he was not a young man, and he had heart problems. He had heart attacks a handful of times, major ones.
True.
But so I mean, he could have known.
Yeah.
I mean, Bowie certainly could have known. Carlin might also have had a sense that something was coming too. But I don't know.
Alrighty. On that morbid note, let's lighten things up. Before we get into this week's topic, I want to take a couple of minutes to thank our sponsors for their support. First off, I want to thank Make My Indie, or we want to thank Make My Indie. I don't know why I'm saying it's just me, but it's all of us for their support. The winter catalog has just come out, or it's been out for a couple weeks now. 138 pages, I believe.
138 pages.
Some really cool books. You just reviewed one.
Yeah, Case File Arkham is in
It's in this
Make
new
My
one.
Indie.
Yep.
It's in the winter edition.
Yep. So, and of course, Croak and a few other books that we've talked about on the website are there. So, if you want to go check it out, just go to our website, www.thefellowshipofgeeks.net, and click on the sponsors page. And the first thing you'll see is Make Mine Indie, and click on the link there, and that'll take you to the page where you can download the winter catalog, in addition to several different books that are either currently available or are going to be available soon. There's interviews with some of the creators. There's reviews. There's previews. It's a great little catalog for indie titles that you don't know are out there, and they deserve to get some attention. Some really good stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
So we thank them for their support. Also, want to thank Things from Another World for being a sponsor of us. Current deals that are available are their evergreen deals, and that is one is 40% off on comics, statues, toys, and merchandise. 30% off select pre-order manga titles. And of course, their popular Nick and Dent comics and graphic novels, which are 50% off. And so while you're there, check those. While you're on our sponsors page, check them out, and I'm sure there will be some new deals come down from time to time, and we'll definitely make sure that they are there. If you click on the images there on the page, that will take you to their website, and that lets them know that we sent you their way, and take advantage of some of these great deals.
Pretty cool stuff.
Yep, I agree. So we do thank everybody for their support. Alrighty, this week's topic. We decided to talk about a sequel that honestly didn't think we would ever see happen. It's been talked about for several years. The original movie came out in '82, so we're talking 35 years. And the movie we are talking about is Blade Runner. Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. And the teaser trailer just came out within the last couple of weeks. So we thought we'd take some time to kind of reflect back to the original movie and the story that it's based off of, which, for those who are not aware, it's Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. And then kind of speculate a little bit about what we think we might see in the sequel, which, do we have? I had it pulled up. When I know it's this year.
Release date is currently October 6th.
Okay, so another 10 months.
Yeah, we got a few months to wait, which is why we only have a teaser trailer to play with here.
Yeah, that's true.
But we're going to play anyway, because why not?
Why not? That's fun. It's always fun to speculate.
Mm-hmm.
Who would like to go first?
Well, let me say this. I have not seen the trailer. Well, I think maybe they showed something at the film or at the theater. But either way, did you not want more of a story when Scott's Blade Runner finished? Did you not feel like you wanted to see what happened to these people? Were they chased? Were they able to just settle down? And if this is the sequel, and what I've heard from you guys for sure is that Decker is, I'm not going to say hunted down, but he is found. So you wonder, okay, now, if he's around, is the android still around? So I'm just going to open with that. I felt like I wanted more. Is what I was looking at.
It's very clever of you to open with questions, but but what the hell? I'll bite.
It's my Socratic method.
Yeah, Socrates. I've heard you tell me stories about how nice a guy he was. But anyway, to answer your first question, I think whether I wanted to see more originally depended on which version of the movie I saw. And this is unfortunately one of those movies that the studio did quite a bit of dicking around with before it released. So that there were several people not happy about what was happening basically in post-production, including the director and the main star. But so if you're watching the one with the narration, then it's hard to care. what happens next, because the narration is so dull and lifeless and needlessly explanatory. It sucked some of the fun. It sucked some of the wonder out of the film, for me anyway. If you can suppress that memory, if that's the first one you saw, like me, and I don't know, I was a teenager, I was an early teen at the time when I saw this, so the impact it made was difficult to overcome. But if you can suppress that and watch like the director's cut, it is a more compelling story, to be honest. So, I mean, given that, yeah, you want to see more. You want to see a sequel. To say Deckard is an interesting enough character to want to follow for another movie, I don't know. But there's certainly enough in the world building aspect of it that it's interesting.
Yeah, they could have done another one in featuring Deckard and Rachel, and assuming Gaff is following them, or if it's not Gaff, maybe some other Blade Runner. But I agree with Mike that there was so much of the world that we did not know that it didn't necessarily have to be. They could have done a follow up and not be Deckard's story. Which, given what I have learned about the sequel, yeah, Deckard's in it, but it's really not his story. It's Ryan Gosling's character story. And so we don't know how much of a part Deckard's actually going to play in it. I agree with the narration. It seemed like but I'm not sure what they were thinking. I don't know if they were trying to go for kind of the noir thing, or they felt that they needed to explain everything. So if they figured if they had Deckard kind of just say, okay, this is going on, or this is what my thought process is, and all that. I guess that was the thinking. I don't know. It's hard for me to say because when I saw the director's cut, I knew essentially the story. So when I didn't have the narration, it didn't bug me. But you know, it's kind of hard. You know, you see what I'm saying? If the director's cut was someone's first attempt at seeing it, I don't know if they would understand everything, but you don't have to understand everything. You can get the gist of what was going on.
Right, and I think that was the whole point. The way I remember the story, and it has been years since I watched like the commentary version on the DVD. Essentially, Scott's and Ford's opinion of what the studio was doing was that they didn't think the audience was smart enough to follow the story without some sort of help. And ultimately, maybe that was because they weren't smart enough to figure out the story. But so they felt that it needed some sort of boost, and it didn't. And if anything, that kind of kills the creativity of it a little bit. Mm-hmm. And no, I'm not just saying that because they tanked the narration so bad. They made the narration dull and lifeless on purpose, pretty much, according to, I forget which one of them. At least, again, this is just how I'm remembering this from years ago. I mean, feel free to write in and tell me how wrong I am. But it's one of those movies. It's got some really cool visionary elements, the stuff that you would expect from the guy who directed Alien. I mean, not that you're expecting any specific part of it, but that it's that kind of cool looking, and it's got just this seething background of stuff going on that, from what I can tell, doesn't necessarily even match the story that Dick wrote. To see that kind of taken away with the narration, kind of not allowed to be what it was, I don't know. This is a movie that I've always kind of loved and hated to an extent. So I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it, but I feel it very strongly, if you know what I mean.
Right. And I agree, the look of it was incredible.
Absolutely.
Not only the look, but of course Vangelis's music was awesome as well. It definitely gave it a character that a more traditional score would it probably would have hurt it if it was more of a traditional. You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, and my
More
attitude.
instead of doing a traditional orchestra music. I mean, it would have been cool, but it did. Vangelis's music with the keyboards and synthesizers and all that, it definitely helped with the atmosphere of the film. It was just a nice package.
Yeah, my deal with the soundtrack, with the score, is that if there was ever a movie in the 80s that could utilize that 80s sensibility for music, it's Blade Runner. Absolutely. It is one of the few 80s movies that I can still watch with the sound up.
Yeah.
Because I just, don't get me started on the 80s. But it just,
Yeah.
I mean, parts of me inside are still dead because of the 80s and because of the music in the 80s. And if any movie can work that, and if any score can work that in a way that actually fits for my twisted mind, it's Blade Runner.
Yeah, there's a lot of those 80 films where they use the early synthesizers and all that, and you go back and watch it now, and it definitely dates the film.
Oh yeah, it kills it now. I mean,
Yeah,
you can't watch it anymore. It's just silly.
and Blade Runner is one of the rare ones where it's timeless.
Yeah, it just the atmosphere is just right for it,
Yeah,
and
I agree.
it just fits beautifully in a way that nothing else ever does fit with the 80s beautifully. But anyway, tell us about the book, Les.
It's been so long since I've read it. I'm sorry.
You've read it since we have, which is sad. But like I said before, I'm at a point where I hate that I haven't read it yet at this point because it's just one of those books that, given how contentious my feelings are about the movie, you'd think I would have read the book just to kind of come to some sort of closure, but I've just never done it. I have no excuse.
Yeah, same.
I was going to say there are times that the book doesn't, well, obviously they don't match. The book and the movie won't match. Many times the book is better, but there are books also that leave questions open also. 2001 is an example. The book left me wondering, scratching my head what the frell was going on. Blade Runner was kind of like that, but I thought that although it was different from the book, they gave a good twist for the movie and made it interesting. I would say that they're strong on their own parts. I can't say one was better than the other. We were talking before show about the fact that there was a comic book done of the novel, and unfortunately I did not stay with it. I picked up like the first two issues and just felt like it was moving as slow as a soap opera. And I just felt like I'm not going to get through this. I'm finding my way through what I've read already. So I dropped the title myself.
Yeah, sometimes they just don't work.
Yeah, I have not read the book or the comics adaptation of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and I'm kind of kicking myself as well. What I've read on Wikipedia, which, as everyone knows, you got to take that with a grain of salt because anybody can edit that stuff.
See, but the upside is with something like this, more than likely it's a fan writing this. So it's
Right.
I mean, it may be biased, but it's at least a little more trustworthy.
Yeah.
It's not biased in a bad way.
Well, in a case like this, I'm pretty sure it's more factual than some other entries
Right.
on
Oh yeah.
the website.
Oh, totally.
Just reading reading the plot on there, I was very intrigued, and it really kind of wanted me to go find the book and read it. We were talking before we started recording the fact that there was a whole subplot where there was a character who was kind of low IQ, low intelligence, who was a replicant sympathizer, and he had taken in 2 or 3 of the ones that were on the loose. And I was reading about this. I'm like, okay, they taken this part and essentially changed it into the J.F. Sebastian that we saw in the movie, who actually worked for the corporation that built the replicants. So I'm like, okay, I can see where they went with that. That's fine. But Dick also did the whole questioning: is Deckard a replicant, or is he human? And I'm gonna throw that question out to you guys. What do y'all think? Because there was a whole thing with the director's cut or the special editions. One of the 7. There's 7 versions, at least 7 versions of this film, according to Wikipedia. Because some of it was edited for different countries and that kind of stuff. But I think it was added in the director's cut, and I think it's stayed in since then. Of the whole Deckard dreaming of a unicorn, and that's implying that he may be a replicant himself. What's your thoughts on that?
I think there's plenty of other ways you could go with that. Funny how that stuff wasn't in the one with the narration, too. But anyway.
Les?
I have only seen the theatrical release, so I couldn't give you a lot of background. As far as the idea that Deckard was a replicant, I didn't get it from the theatrical, and I really don't remember it in the book, unless I said that while we were off prior to taping.
Right. I will point out, and I've seen this mentioned from time to time as well, if you go back and watch the film, there are scenes where the replicants, their eyes kind of glow. You know, how there's the whole thing with the lighting or something, and they kind of, you see it in old photographs and all that kind of stuff where it's the iris and all that. There was one scene where it was with Rachel and Deckard in his apartment that Deckard's eyes went that way for just a few seconds too. And that's some people's indication that, well, you don't see that with Tyrell. You don't see that with some of the other that we know are human. So could he be or could he not be? I don't know. The thing with the unicorn, I still, to this day, don't understand why him dreaming of a unicorn would imply that he is.
See, okay, if we want to let's take the other end of the spectrum, the oversimple response to that. The unicorn is traditionally and mythologically a solitary creature. That's it. It could very possibly be that's it. It's the kind of thing that would be a representation in a dream of something totally different. Maybe he's dreaming of a unicorn because he's lonely. Who knows? It could be like I said, it could be any of a ridiculously wide range of possible interpretations.
Right. I mean, it's a dream. We all have dreams that we can't explain. So that's just something that I have never understood. So, I just let it go. If some people think that, okay, yeah, that proves it. Okay, well, great.
See, my dreams like that, I'm usually not wearing pants, but I mean, other than that, it's.
Oh wow.
TMI, if I may.
I didn't say I wasn't wearing pants now. I said in my dreams sometimes I'm not wearing pants. That's actually a fairly common one from what I've been told. We'll find out if it really is, but anyway.
Hopefully Decker is not a brony, so the unicorn is not going through that route.
See, and it's set in 2019, so that could be it. Right there. You just solved this, man. Ridley Scott in 1982 predicted bronies.
Wow.
And he made Deckard a
I am
brony.
so sorry, America. I
Oh, so much fun.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so are you looking forward to it or not?
Oh, yeah. I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, Ridley's not directing it, but he's behind it. So his input's in there. I like the world. As we kind of talked about earlier, I wanted to see more of this world. And now we're going to get that chance. So, yeah. I have no idea what we'll see. And the trailer gave us no indication either, except for the fact that Ryan Gosling's character is looking for Deckard, and that's just based off the little teaser trailer, and finds him. But whether that is the whole point of this story, something else has obviously gone on, because we are talking about a 30-year time period between the first one and this one, which I thought was a smart thing to do too, because that would explain Deckard's appearance and all that. It just kind of made sense to do that. So, I don't know. I definitely want to see it, but I have no idea. I'm not sure what I want to see from it, other than just more of the world and what's going on, and especially now that it's been 30 years since the events of the first film. What has happened in that time?
Yeah, see, again, love-hate. I'm torn on this one. Because, like you, Tom, a lot of the stuff I really loved about this movie was kind of the setting. And it had a certain cyberpunk feel to it that I don't know what they're going to do with that now in our current post-cyberpunk era. And it's just too weird. I mean, now I did notice in looking at that Wikipedia page about do androids dream of electric sheep, it said something about nuclear war. Now that makes me wonder, because I did not ever get that feeling from the movie, from the Ridley Scott movie. It just looked like, that a lot of that cyberpunk feel, that overpopulated sensibility, and that bright neon lights and all that shit. But,
Yeah.
So, and to be honest, the trailer, granted, it could have just been, like you suggested before, just a desert setting. It could have just been the road to Vegas, but it also could have been more. It could have been a nuclear wasteland. It could have been an almost Mad Max type setting. Who knows? It's that teaser trailer is very vague, and it doesn't tell us much. Hence the term teaser trailer. But I don't know. I can't say that particular trailer makes me want to see this. I am curious, but I'm also a hard sell when it comes to movies. So
That's true.
I'm not sold. Again, there's, like I said, half of me thinks there was no reason for a sequel to this in the first place, and the other half is, unfortunately, I think it's the half that would have loved to have seen a sequel, is very concerned about where it's going and where it could go at this point. So I don't know. Is that confusing enough?
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Oh, totally.
Oh, yeah.
The cyberpunk feel in the original made me think that although technology had advanced quite a bit, from the look of this movie, the original movie, it was stagnant. Technology had gone stagnant. And I can see it going forward very little for this movie. Although there's a 30-year gap, I can see them feeling like we're going to drag this cyber field with us because we haven't advanced ourselves all that much. And as a result, you're going to I would think that they will have similar weaponry, similar scientific items to use in this movie. And does that make sense? Where I'm just thinking that they felt like they had reached the pinnacle, and the cities still look like they did in the original, and the people reacted the same way they did in the original. I just have a feeling that that's where it's going to be. And the wasteland idea is probably the one that they're going to go for.
Well, and I can now that I'm thinking about it, I can sort of see hints to that in the original, at least in terms of people in the first movie. I mean, there is definitely I don't know how to say this without it sounding weird. There's definitely sort of a human waste type sensibility that the people are just, like you say, stagnant. You use the word stagnant. I think that's at least hinted at in Blade Runner. The idea that it would only take 30 years for the world to devolve, I don't know. But without some sort of catastrophe, that would be tricky. But and honestly, in my experience with cyberpunk, there's not necessarily a hell of a lot of technological advancement going on. Usually cyberpunk stuff is very in the moment. And so we're using the skills we have to do these things that affect others and yada, yada, yada. But there doesn't necessarily have to be a lot of advancement going on. I mean, you're creating something, but you're not necessarily creating something innovative. I don't know. Maybe that's just my interpretation of the entire cyberpunk genre.
I can agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
And who's to say, kind of piggyback on the wasteland and all that? Maybe it was brought about by the replicants. Maybe there was a war.
Yeah,
I don't know.
There could be. I mean, and like I said, the teaser trailer doesn't give us any information in that regard. So, other than just the,
hey, here's Ryan and here's Harrison.
Yeah, here's the sandstorm and here's stuff. Yeah. I mean,
and yeah,
they could
stay tuned in a few months for another trailer.
Right. Yeah, we'll pitch you something in March or April to probably give you like the first real trailer for somewhere in that time frame. Maybe even wait till May. Who knows? They've got an October release. They could wait till May for a trailer. Yep.
Okay. Well, Les, I know you said you hadn't seen the trailer. Are you interested in seeing it? I mean, seeing the sequel.
I think so, yes. Just to see, like I said, at the end of the first one, in the general release, I was wanting to know what transpired for them. Let's see what does go on.
You want to know what happened to Rachel?
Yes. And like I said, by the sound of it, they don't show Rachel in the trailer.
No.
They barely show Deckard.
Yeah.
He's there, but I mean, it's clearly
Let's just hope he hasn't fallen into the category of I'm going to die every movie now.
Yeah, I was going to. I actually, oh man, seriously, I thought, boy, wouldn't it be funny if he died on the end of a lightsaber in this one too? And then I thought that his next movie would be Indiana Jones and dying on the end of a lightsaber. And then just do Air Force One too, and have President Harrison Ford die on the end of a lightsaber. But anyway.
It could happen.
It shouldn't happen.
Wow.
It should never happen.
No.
It's funny that you mention Rachel, because as I said earlier, before we started recording, that there's been just rumors popping out. Well, of course, that's what's going to happen. That's going to happen until the fucking movie comes out.
Uh-huh.
But one of the other ones is supposedly one of the replicants from the first one is supposed to return. And I'm like, well, the only one that survived was Rachel. And I kind of found it suspicious. I kind of found it funny that that Sean Young wasn't brought back. So who knows? Maybe it's a secret. Assuming that's accurate, which it's a rumor. You take it for what it's worth. You take it. Nothing. It's not set in stone or anything. So.
Yep. It's too soon to tell. All of that for it's too soon to tell.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's fun along the way to
yeah. It's essentially is your guess is as good as mine.
Yep.
And usually your guesses are better than mine, so.
That's not true.
I don't know who you're talking about.
I know my guesses aren't. They are no better than any other monkey on the street.
Well, that sounds like a good title for a movie.
The Monkey on the Street?
Monkey on the Street.
Sounds like a good title for an episode.
True.
I hope you're making mental notes here, Mikey. Okay. Any final thoughts before we move on?
Nothing here.
No. I think that this is just the beginning of the fun speculation on this movie, and I think if they're smart, they're going to play it close. They're going to play their cards close to their chest and encourage that speculation, and not really give us much.
Right.
I think that's the smart play. Of course, that doesn't mean they'll do that, but
it's to their benefit because that means people are talking about the film.
Yeah.
I agree. Alrighty. So when we come back, we'll have our weekly picks. And we're back. It's time for weekly picks, and leading off is Les.
Thank you, sir. First one I'm going to look at is Red Sonja #1 from Dynamite Entertainment. This is a new storyline by Amy Chu with art by Carlos B. Gomez. And in this one, since it is a new story, they are going to have Red Sonja emerging from a subway construction site in New York City. She ends up fighting for survival, and the questions that are going to be posed is this an accident, or was it by design? And then, of course, the second big questions are who did it and why. We were talking before podcast about this. I want to see what they can do with this to put the character into a different realm. But I think we all had a problem with the time travel portion of it. I just want to see how they work this out and how it's done when they discover who actually performed this act to transform her. Is she there because of an evil person? Is she there to save somebody that's called upon her through time? I'm not sure. But I'm interested as to which direction they do go with this one.
Yeah, and what we were talking about before was the issue 0 that came out a few weeks ago, which kind of sets up the whole time travel aspect of it. There's some There may be some hints in that if anybody's curious. And I believe they only charged $0.25 for it. Is
Yep.
that right?
Yeah, it was only a quarter. I know y'all are not big on time travel. I can go either way. My problem is I've just read something similar to this just within the last year and a half. Now, I'm going to check this out anyway because I like Amy Chu's writing and it's read Sonja. But after reading issue 0, I was going, yeah, okay. So I'll definitely give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'll look at it too, but yeah. The issue 0 didn't sell me. And I consider myself a fan of Red Sonja, so especially with her recent resurgence.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's, for my money, it's a little, and this is, I'm wandering a bit here, but for my money, it's a little too soon after Swords of Sorrow to be doing weird stuff like this, because ultimately that's what that was. It was a huge time travel, bringing like a dozen or more strong female characters into a kind of a modern setting, at least temporarily, for this huge battle. And so it's, I don't know,
Yeah.
Again, I will check out issue 1 for sure, just because that's what I do. And I might like it. It's entirely possible.
Yeah. We won't know until we actually read it. So.
Right.
Alrighty. I'm up next, and for my first choice is Dollface #1 from Action Lab Entertainment. Although this is going to be from their Danger Zone line. It's written by and illustrated by Dan Mendoza, who is the creator of Zombie Tramp. And this is actually picking up from the little preview that came out for Halloween Comic Fest of a witch hunter from the 17th century by the name of Lila, whose soul has been transported to modern day. Hey, here we go again. But put into a ball-jointed doll, life-size doll. So she's going to be running around battling, all the things that kind of bump in the dark. But she's going to be in this form. So I remember the preview being kind of interesting. So I figure I want to give this a shot and see where we go from it. I do like Zombie Tramp. It's not what you think. You kind of look at the cover and you go, okay, I kind of know what they're doing there, but it really doesn't. It doesn't.
It really is a little deeper than that.
Yeah, it is.
There actually is a story there. It is definitely the story of someone you wouldn't necessarily think would have this huge, long, ongoing story, but it is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about this one too. I'm going to check it out.
Alrighty, Mikey.
All right, I'm going with an Image book. Birthright is coming back. Issue 21. It comes out this week. And if the previews here, if the little messages are anything to talk about, we're going to get to learn more about the mother of Mikey's child, or future child. The winged lady who showed up in our world extremely pregnant in the middle of all of this stuff, where Mikey's still trying to figure out how to deal with all the stuff he's dealing with, because boy, there's layers there, as one might expect with a Josh Williamson book. But yeah, so I'm excited that this is back. They've been off for a little bit now, and it's time. I'm ready for them to come back now. So.
Yep, I agree. We were due.
Yeah, I agree.
Alrighty, Les, you're up again.
I'm up again. Now, from Dark Horse, I'm looking at Groo, Fray of the Gods, #4. Mark Evanier and Sergio Aragonis bring us the hapless barbarian. And in this, Groo is in the midst of a battle between the all-powerful gods and some lesser gods. Something I did like about the write-up on this is that it's the last issue of a 4-issue Groo miniseries, and we all know what that leads to, the first issue of the next 4-issue Groo miniseries.
I'm hoping.
Yep.
And they say it's coming soon, so I've got a feeling that these guys are going to really crank for a while, which is great, because Groo is such a funny character, and it's one of those that can last with multitude stories for, decades. It already has gone a couple of decades, so I'm sure that they can push it even further.
Yeah, I think the days of this being an ongoing book like it was at one time, I don't see that happening. It's probably best to do what they're doing here is a series of miniseries, and I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Even their Maxi series was fine.
You know, it's kind of like what Image does with a lot of their books. They do a story arc, and then there's a little bit of a break, and then they come back, and here's a new story arc. So it's kind of the same principle.
Yeah, and I think that's going to prove to be the way these guys should work, because, I mean, let's be realistic. The reason they don't have an ongoing, for the most part, is because they get behind, and they're not getting any younger, so they're not gonna get behind less now.
Right.
So, pop off 4 at a time, take a couple of months, get it all together, and then pop off another 4, and I'm good with that.
Yep.
As am I.
It's a strategy that's working for Image, like you said.
All right. Cool. I am up again, and my second pick is from Chapter House. It is Die Kitty Die number 4, and it's written by Fernando Ruiz and Dan Parent, with Ruiz doing the art. And we've talked about this series before. This is the final chapter of this story arc. I know there's going to be some other books down the line. I don't think it's ongoing. I think, kind of like what we were just talking about with Groo, that it's going to be a series, a miniseries, and that's fine. But if you've not checked out this book, I highly recommend it, because it is a nice poke at the industry. And the premise is Kitty is a very popular character, and she's a real world character, a real world person, but she's a witch. And she's got her own book, but the sales were tanking. So the publisher decided, well, let's kill off Kitty. That's what you do. You draw interest by killing off a character. But they were going to want to go one step further by actually killing off Kitty in real life. And then they were going to replace her with a sexy cousin, if I'm not mistaken. It was a cousin. But a lot of the jokes in there is really a poke of what the mindset of the current industry. And there's some pokes at the fans too. But it's been a treat to read. It's been awesome. I've enjoyed it. Hate to see it end, but I'm pretty sure that we'll have some more down the road.
Yeah, if they turn it around and do another arc like we were discussing, that's fine with me, because it is a funny read.
Alrighty, Mikey.
Okie dokie. My second pick is a Dynamite book. And it is a new spin-off of their James Bond 007. I think maybe we're now at the point where we can call this a franchise. And this one is Felix Leiter, number 1. It is written by James Robinson and drawn by Aaron Campbell. And unsurprisingly, it is CIA agent Felix Leiter, who has been Bond's CIA buddy forever. I mean, since the Ian Fleming novels back in the 50s. He's going to get to take off on his own little adventure. This issue is going to find him in Tokyo. So, looking to track down a Russian spy. I mean, no shock there, but I think this ought to be fun. I've liked where both series that I've seen so far from this have gone. I mean, Warren Ellis writing James Bond is as good as you're going to get, and the other Bond series has also been really good as well. So I think it's worth checking out.
Surprisingly, this is kind of one of those, why hadn't somebody thought of this before? I mean, if you were going to have a spin-off of James Bond, who would it be? And
right, and why
Felix
would it not
Leiter.
be Felix Leiter? I mean,
Right.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
My opinion, and this is a little bit of a tangent, my opinion is that he's always been kind of shorted in the movies.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, you almost never get the same guy playing him twice. Almost never.
True.
And it's kind of not fair. I mean, I'd like to see more of him, and I'd like to see a consistency. I mean, it's just, I'm looking forward to seeing where this one goes, just because I'd like to see him take the lead, have some fun with it.
Yep.
It does look like fun.
Alrighty. Any honorable mentions this week?
Not me.
I have one. They have collected Roger Langridge's series Baker Street Peculiars. Boom Studios is putting this out, and I think I mentioned it on a previous podcast of Sherlock Holmes recruiting 3 young detectives in training and a golden retriever to solve a mystery of a giant lion statue in Trafalgar Square that comes to life. This does collect the series, which is a 4-issue and a lot of fun to read. I like Langridge's art and his writing, both very witty but very intelligent. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing this book as a collection, and hopefully the listeners out there will pick this one up too.
Yep, it was a fun series. I liked it a lot too.
Yep. I have an honorable mention as well, and it's from Marvel. And it's Marvel Man Classic Volume 1, written and illustrated by Mick Angelo. And this is reprinting the original books from the mid-50s. And if you're not familiar with Marvel Man, in the early 50s, don't remember the name of the publisher right now, but it was a UK publisher. They were doing Shazam stories. And right around this time, DC had actually sued Fawcett Publications in America, saying that Captain Marvel, Shazam, is a ripoff of Superman. And it basically, what happened was Fawcett basically stopped publishing Captain Marvel. I think it actually went defunct, if I'm not mistaken. So the UK publisher was like, okay, well, what do? We don't have any more material. So essentially, what they did was they did a copy of Captain Marvel and just called him Marvel Man. I mean, it is so thinly veiled that this is a ripoff of Captain Marvel. That it's a young boy named Mickey Moran who says Kimoda, which is atomic spelled backwards, and he turns into Marvel Man. And then there was a kid Marvel Man, and then there was a young Marvel Man. So instead of Captain Marvel Jr. and Mary Marvel. And the villains were very similar to Captain Marvel's villains. So, and this went on for years, and it's kind of funny. So this is reprinting, Marvel's reprinting some of the original. I think it's going on in order, according to the write-up. It starts with number 25. So I've read some of them because there's been other collections come out, and so I've read some of the Silver Age stuff, and of course the stuff in the 80s when was it Neil Gaiman and some of those wrote it, and they actually changed it to Miracle Man because there was a possible suit by Marvel because they owned the rights to the word Marvel. So it kind of it's so funny.
It kind of went full circle there.
Yeah, it went full circle. So now Marvel owns Marvel Man, although they've done some stuff as Miracle Man and all that. So I definitely want to check this out. It would be nice if it's actually in order, that it is not just an issue here and then an issue 2-3 years down the road, and like that, it's actually a series of issues in a row to kind of read. So I definitely want to check it out.
Cool.
Good idea.
Alrighty. So that leads us to our shout-outs. Our first shout-out obviously goes to Manny the Martyr, who provides the really cool music that you hear on our podcast. Great group of guys. Thank you very much for letting us use your music. You check out our show notes. There will be a link to their page. You go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and go to our podcast page. There will be a link there as well. Of course, we have to thank the awesome people of Podern Family, #Podern Family, for their support. Fine folks of podcasters. If you go to Twitter and do a search, #Podern Family, you can find any kind of podcast on any subject you can think of. It's out there. Please feel free to check them out. Is there anybody we want to send a particular shout out this week, Mikey?
Sure. If you get a chance, you should consider checking out the Unwritable Rant podcast. This is a very nice little podcast. They kind of alternate back and forth. Sometimes Juliet just tells stories, and sometimes she does some really cool interviews. She's gotten some really interesting names. She's talked to people like Ed Begley Jr., Eric Roberts, Charlie Daniels was one.
Yeah, I think Eric Roberts was the most recent one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So some really, really cool interviews, and even when they're not interviews, Juliet's a really good storyteller, and she definitely likes her bourbon, but not in a bad way. She is an aficionado, not a drunk. Although I don't know if she would agree with that exactly. But anyway, the Unwritable Rant, check it out.
Very cool. Once again, thank you guys of Podern Family for supporting us, and we are doing our darnest to return that love. Thank you very, very much. And of course, dear listeners, thank you. A shout out to you. Thank you for downloading this podcast and our previous podcast. Thank you for listening. We are always interested in your feedback. If you have questions, comments, suggestions, you want to take us to task with something we've said on this episode or previous episode, please, we're always open. We're always willing to listen to what you had to say. The best way to do that is, one, you can go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, go to our About Us page, and there's a form there you can fill out. Or you can shoot us a email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. We are also on Facebook. You can like us there, and you can shoot us a message that way if you like. The Fellowship of the Geeks. And obviously we are on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Go ahead and follow us and let us know that that you enjoy the show, or you have some questions, or we've sent you that way, and we will obviously send you a response saying, "Hey, thank you, thanks for following, thanks for the support." Mikey has his own Twitter page at Mikey Geek, and I have one as well at TomTCGeek. Feel free to follow us and let us know that you're a fan of the show. It's always cool to hear from people who check out the podcast. And wherever you download our show, whether it's through iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or you check us out on YouTube, please feel free to rate our shows. And if you have a couple extra minutes, write a review. Let us and let them know what you think of our show. It would be greatly appreciated. Did I leave anything out?
I think you nailed it. Question of the week.
Oh, yeah.
Apocalyptic or cyberpunk? Which do you prefer?
Okay.
That
worked for me.
Kind of came from the Blade Runner trailer, but at least in my head it did. I don't know.
That's a good question.
Alrighty. Any final words from you guys before we sign off?
Just thanks, everybody.
We do appreciate you listening, and we, like Thomas said, we want to hear from you.
Yep, exactly. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. Y'all take care. We do love y'all. Until next time, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,